With round one is how we start, and vice versa. Ian and Ross.
There's Estelle Morris saying, I'm useless, I resign. Blair saying, I'm useless, I don't resign.
John Peel there.
Yep.
Yeah, Charles Clarke, wasn't it, who's taken over, because Morris has just gone, right, that's it, I'm off. You know, if I don't do it properly, then I'm just going to resign and that's it. And she's been taken over by a bloke who used to be a Toby jug. Yeah.
That's Charles Clarke.
Yeah, that's right.
He's taken her job over rather than taking her over.
Yeah, no, actually taking her over.
That's right.
He's going to set her up as a small shop.
Isn't this a rare case of somebody resigning for the sake of the programme? Government. Government.
Yes.
Government. Not programme, government. I meant government, I said programme, but I should have said government. Yeah. Not programme, forget programme, just government.
It was an easy mistake to make.
Really, was it? Yeah. Sounded like it needed quite a lot of organisation where I was sitting. There's a phone calls, there's a knock at the door.
A lot of stamina too.
Could I talk about Estelle Morris just briefly? Is that okay?
Yes, certainly.
I'd rather hear about the sordid details of it, if you would.
So would I,
just a little bit, go on.
Yeah.
Just a tiny bit.
If I knew what they were, I'd tell you, I promised.
That's as unconvincing as anything I've ever heard. Yes, let's talk about politics. The stream of sleaze can wait.
Yes. Paul and Gerald, you're not on Channel 5.
Eureka Johnson, Matthew Wright, who was, that's him on this show, in fact. The selection of newspapers there with the cut-out details, the things that were cut out was the name of the man behind this accusation, and Sky Television and ITN have named him, but the BBC have got a policy at the moment of not naming him, so I can't give you the answer you're looking for. It wasn't you, was it?
We are allowed to refer to him as Mr. X.
Why will the BBC not allow this man's name to be mentioned when ITV will?
Oh. Yeah. I don't know. This is a question for the lawyers. I've no idea.
I suppose it's just a bit old-fashioned, me, but I always thought if you'd been raped, you rang up the police rather than a publisher. I suppose the basic reason he's not being named is because he hasn't been proved guilty yet. There's been a jury of one so far called Ulrika. This is just more of this. It's been a week where you sit there thinking, is there anything else going on in this country apart from a bunch of Z-list celebrities having sex with each other?
Yes.
The answer depressingly seems to be no.
No, yes. Gerald, you were surprised that there was a serious discussion programme, you were saying?
Yes, and I'm still surprised.
Yes.
To be fair, I think that this is as intellectual a television programme as you will find.
How dare you! You've come along as a guest and you badmouth us like that.
I thought the whole point about being a guest here was either to badmouth or be badmouthed, and calling this programme an intellectual programme was as low as I could sink.
Yes. We're following Fame Academy, come on.
Apparently the winner of that's going to host this show. Do you know that? Do you know about that? Happening, apparently.
Should happen.
But that doesn't finish for months.
Oh no, it must be wrong then.
Yeah.
Next, nudists with attitude sees what?
Quiz show host. Get them bloody clothes off.
Is it nudists with attitude sees up in the cold weather?
It isn't. It is, in fact, the high ground. Next, I let a robot what?
Host my quiz show. And there was a significant improvement.
Is it...
Relentless. Yes.
I let the robot...
Says the voice of the people.
Yeah.
Or was that the news of the world?
I don't think they say that.
Is she a friend of yours, Angus? Good. That's right, love. It's only another 20 minutes to go.
If you've got a friend, you're both in luck.
That strange feeling of déjà vu.
Believe you me,
the rest of the country.
Operate on my knee. Before we bid them a fond good riddance, the minor irritation of our caption competition.
Prime Minister threatened by tiny comet.
Mystery sniper shoots hole in Estelle Morris.
Thank you.
TV man saying, slept with anyone interesting this week?
The last assault.
I wouldn't bet on it.
Is Mr X just out of shot?
On which elevated note we say thank you to our panellists Ian Hislop and Ross Noble, Paul Merton and Gerald Kaufman, and I leave you with news that after persistently trying to sell household goods door to door, a Bristol man is set upon by angry housewives. Scientists uncover proof that self-hypnosis techniques carry no guarantee of success in life. And in London, a meeting breaks for 5 minutes after the mayor is informed of the death of his favourite newt. Good night.
Ian and Joe, take a look at this.
Oh, well, that's some innocent people who, after a long struggle, have proved their innocence. Postmasters. There's someone who's not innocent. That's the former chief executive, Paula Vennells. She's guilty. There she is, humping mailbags. That'll be her next profession. Sewing them. So it's a fantastic result. 39 people, one of the biggest miscarriages of justice this country's ever seen, have cleared their reputations. And they were locked up and their lives were ruined and their reputations were destroyed because the post office said, you're stealing at the end of the day from your machines. And they weren't. It was a classic, the computer had got it wrong. It was a faulty IT system, and for nearly 10 years, the Post Office continued to say, no, the computer says yes, you're guilty. It was that feeble.
And also people were told that they were the only people who had done this.
Yeah.
They weren't told that there was dozens or hundreds of other people.
And you thought somebody in the Post Office might have said, how is it that a disproportionate amount of dishonest people come and work for the Post Office? Because the company, the Post Office chief execs, were the only ones that knew how many there were. And you say 39, but there are a lot more cases still to come.
Yeah. Yes, no. I mean, it was 39 acquittals.
Yeah.
But the case action was about 500
Yeah.
odd.
But you should take a boundary, because
500.
Private Eye was the magazine for the last 10 years that's been pushing this story, haven't you? Been investigating it.
We have banged on about it quite a lot. But, Computer Weekly started it off, and there was a good BBC programme called Inside Out South, which you should take about. So, and some brilliant, obviously, postmasters themselves saying, I don't think I should have been locked up. And why did no one believe us for this amount of time? This is useless government IT. The same firm, Fujitsu, did the NHS IT system, which lost £12 billion and had to be scrapped because it was entirely useless.
Did they do the Nando's app? Because that's terrible. Nightmare. Every time I go for lemon and herb, it gives me extra spicy. I'm too delicate for it.
It doesn't arrest you afterwards, does it?
It probably gets close.
Yes, the Public Accounts Committee described their handling of the NHS patients' details as the worst contracting fiasco in the history of the public sector. That was before Test and Trace. Fujitsu, obviously, is the company. Horizon was the system.
Yeah.
When did Fujitsu become aware that the Horizon system they had developed was faulty?
10 years ago.
According to Computer Weekly, a senior software developer who worked at Fujitsu alleged that the system should never have been launched and that bosses at Fujitsu knew this. Everybody in the building, by the time I got there in 2001, knew it was a bag of shit. It had gone through the test labs, God knows how many times, and the testers were raising bugs by the thousand. Paula Vennells, there she is. She'd be quite good in Line of Duty, wouldn't she? Sorry.
Looks like a crypt keeper. She is.
She's the former chief executive of the Post Office. Paula's a very accomplished woman. She's not only an ordained Anglican vicar, she also became a non-executive director at the supermarket chain Morrison's and the furnishings retailer Dunelm, an advisor to the Cabinet Office and chair of Imperial College NHS Trust, as well as overseeing the most widespread miscarriage of justice in British legal history. So well done, Paula. Why is Paula Vennells taking all the blame for the Post Office fiasco?
It's her fault, I would say.
She was chief executive Tim Parker was chairman.
Here he is, Tim Parker.
Oh, my God.
Oh.
Was it low clouds that day? What the earth is going on there? Well, we can see where the money's gone, can't we?
He looks as though he's borrowed the judge's wig. Put it on his head. He said of this he'd like to apologise for historic failures, by which he was trying to imply things that had happened a long, long time
Before he got there.
Before he got there, but it's just not true. You know, even a couple of years ago, the Post Office was trying to replace the judge who'd found the first lot of people innocent and saying he shouldn't be allowed to try the case anymore.
Why did they do this? I mean, presumably these people aren't evil, but what they did is so sort of incompetent and so dreadful. I mean, why couldn't they, at the beginning of this, say, look, it's been a terrible mistake? Why couldn't they admit to that?
It's partly due to, you know, you're picking up an enormous bonus, but also it's just the basic thing, I think, of just believing in technology.
Yeah.
I know that sounds very, very archaic and stupid, but if you've got people saying, no, it really wasn't us stealing, you could listen to them.
That would be a good punishment, actually, for those execs, wouldn't it? A lifetime of the computer disagreeing with them. You know, they go into hospital with a broken leg. Sorry, actually, the computer says it's not broken.
In fact, it's better. It's
Or computer dating, setting them up with people who weren't very suitable. The rest of their life. Every night.
All this began at the turn of the century. Around that time, the Royal Mail had decided it was going to be called something else. Do you remember that was?
Bastards are us.
No. Do you remember they decided they were going to be called Consignia?
Consignia, that's a sort of mafia post, isn't it? That's number 3.
Consigliere.
Oh, yes.
As the Royal Mail Chief Executive John Roberts explained, Consignia describes the full scope of what the Post Office does in a way that the words post and office cannot. It cost £1 million for that idea, and it was ditched only 2 years after, amid general agreement that it was the most unpopular brand in UK marketing history. But let's give credit, as you did earlier, Ian, to Computer Weekly magazine, which led the investigation into the Post Office story. Did you see how they described the predictability of government-backed IT projects ending in failure? It goes something like this. Ambitious project, outsourcing, bloat, disaster, crash, spend, spend, spend.
That's the weekend for me.
So, yes, this is the sub-postmaster scandal and calls for former Post Office Chief Paula Vennells to be stripped of her CBE. According to the Mail's brief biography of Paula Vennells, until the Post Office catastrophe, her career, largely in retail, had been exemplary. Well, I'm guessing for many years, Harold Shipman was a top-notch GP. There was a solemn atmosphere in court as the judge read out the verdicts of the 39 sub-postmasters. Cashier number 1, not guilty. Cashier number 2, not guilty.
You know, maybe Rishi didn't have the only terrible launch.
Now, who might be particularly delighted with the timing of the election announcement?
Paula Vennells from the Post Office, because she was up in the inquiry and it blasted her off the front pages and she would have got an absolute shellacking.
That's right, former Post Office head honcho and national sweetheart, Paula Vennells.
She cried 4 times for herself. It was a really disgraceful performance. And I think, yeah, it was appalling. She said things like, I didn't know that they were prosecuting these people when I took over. And you think, that just isn't true. It's all lies. I mean, she is now in the inquiry trying to blame her colleagues, which is the entire point of the inquiry, is that she's already blamed people who didn't do it in an attempt to cover herself, and now she's doing it again.
I also just don't understand how you can come and take over an organisation where suddenly, out of nowhere, after a new computer system comes in, 1 in 12 people that work from you has got their hands in the till and you never previously noticed, even though they worked for you for 30 years before that.
And you work for the Tory party.
I know, right?
But if what is happening is that the amount of money that you claim they've stolen is returned to the Post Office and then you take it out as a bonus, which they did, that's straightforward theft.
I was going to call it corruption.
That's worse than that.
Is it worse than corruption?
Yeah.
OK.
To show some humility, what did Vennells admit was a personal failure?
Oh, she said she was too trusting.
I was too trusting, she told the inquiry.
I mean, that's the Prince Andrew defence. I was too noble.
I can't sweat, she said.
I use all my inner water for tears. And her tears reached number 10 Downing Street, didn't they?
Do you know what the inquiry chair, Sir Wyn Williams, asked her?
Did he say, why are you played by a different actor than in the TV show?
He wanted to know more about a briefing document Vennells received which advised her to only provide certain information if really pushed to do so. Let's have a look.
If I were to suggest to you that you were being advised to be very precise, very circumspect, and very guarded about what you said, that was the effect of that document. Would you agree?
I would, Sir Wyn. I'm not sure I would have noticed that on the morning of the day.
But you'll see the point in a moment. That was the effect that was trying to be created by those who created that document.
It could have been, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Why?
With hindsight, because possibly...
And if you need time to think about it,
No,
you can tell me in a moment.
I don't.
No, that's enough now.
Brutal.
Wow.
If you need time, how about 10 years?
Is there any likelihood that you will end up in prison, do you think?
I think as soon as the inquiry is over, the incoming government, be it Labour or Conservative...
Or Lib Dem.
Or Lib Dem.
Or Plaid Cymru.
Or Plaid Cymru. One of the ways we could make an early popular success is prosecute some of the people at the post office. I think it'd be a really good first week.
This is the news that Rishi Sunak's new job in Silicon Valley apparently starts on July 5th. The post office inquiry continues. When news of the post office scandal broke, Paula Vennells also had a job with the NHS, now embroiled in the contaminated blood scandal. So she just needs a role with South West Water and she's got the set. While seemingly turning a blind eye to the wrongful convictions of sub-postmasters, Paula Vennells also served as an Anglican vicar and could often be heard in church telling the famous parable of the screwing of the 5,000.
I love the use of the word seemingly. That was very good. Can we just check the lawyers awake?
What would you say, Ian?
Ignoring willfully through perverse and evil motivation. Well, the post office story is about miscarriage. Mm-hmm. 900 people denied justice and persecuted for decades and not given any compensation, and now they're finally saying, oh, those people, yes, we knew they were innocent, we just prosecuted them anyway. And the odd one out is that's an absolute national disgrace, and I don't care much about that. Anyway,
Are you going to pick an odd one out, or...?
Yes. The Winslow boy.
Yes.
And that was a miscarriage of justice.
Mm-hmm. Stealing a postal order.
Exactly.
But he didn't do.
He didn't, but he was smoking, so he should have been shot.
Yeah.
Any guesses for what the odd one out is?
Yes, the aeroplane, the journalists, because they did it. They nicked stuff off the plane.
You're absolutely right. They have all been wrongly accused of stealing, apart from journalists on board Air Force One who have been asked to return stolen items. So before the post office inquiry resumed this week, what was the new evidence, Ian?
ITV had a tape, people saying we had told Paula Vennells that Horizon could remotely access and fiddle their accounts. There was that, and then there was further evidence in the inquiry this week, and it is sort of getting there. It literally is everything that anyone has ever said for 2 decades is absolutely true.
I was pleased to see that the BBC did give Private Eye a mention, because Private Eye did play a large part in writing about this story for 20-odd years. That's not enough reason to buy it, but, you know.
Yes, this is...
Miss BMP?
Yeah. I don't think he's a real policeman. We do these things so much better than anybody else, don't we? Weddings. Somebody said they employed lip readers to sort of see what they were saying. She said, I do at one point. He said, I do at another point. But apparently Prince Charles at one point turned to Camilla and tried his lip reader, and apparently he said...
Yeah, what nugget did David Cameron share with Nick Clegg?
I've never liked you.
I want a divorce.
Yeah.
He revealed I had to have my trousers let out.
Let's be honest, she's a good-looking girl, but there's no need for that. I mean, that's not...
It's not seamless.
That is just disrespectful. Oi, use the hymn book, use the hymn book. That's what he said.
If, as a result of his presidency, the world does indeed end, won't it be marvellous to think it happened in our time?
He might change what the word presidential means. Like, in a few years, you'll be going, oh, my uncle fell over and banged his head on a curb. He's been rendered completely presidential.
He dismissed the head of the FBI this week.
Comey, James Comey?
Mr. Comey was dismissed.
Comey over.
Because he was...
investigating his connections with Russia.
And now there's an inquiry. Who's been put in charge of the inquiry?
They've got a special prosecutor.
A former
Yeah,
head of
former
the
FBI.
FBI.
And then when you open up that
Robert
special
Mueller.
prosecutor, there'll be another little special prosecutor, and open up, there'll be another and eventually a little bloke saying, did you do it?
He's Robert Mueller, who was the former FBI director. James Comey's done something to get his revenge on Trump. Any idea
He has
what it is?
produced his memo.
Oh,
he
yes,
kept
he
a
should
memorandum.
didn't he?
Yes.
After Trump tweeted that he had kept, or suggested he might have kept, a recording of the dinner that took place in February, Comey then came back to say, well, I kept a memorandum.
And he said, will you drop the Russian stuff? So basically, he accused him of literally trying to interfere in the process of justice. And the Americans don't like that very much. So it is all going wrong.
Yeah.
And then the best bit was Putin, who was like, oh, if you want the transcript, we've got one.
How did Trump's administration respond to Comey's leak?
With confusion.
With incredible confusion. According to online news website Daily Beasts, one official said, I felt like running down the hallway with a fire extinguisher.
Paisley pyjamas, rather small
Indeed.
pattern. That's a middle-aged man. He's just enlarging it. Oh dear, that's one of your lot.
Did you remember him?
Yes, he was Minister for Civil Society. And he was being very polite in his way.
This story is about a sting, isn't it? This is about a national newspaper, shall we call them the Mirror for the sake of argument,
Yes.
setting up a bloke
Well, that's the
to
truth.
look like a woman and really just sort of enticing a Conservative MP to do something that some people might say was unusual.
Yeah. Would you say it was unusual?
Well, I think it's... I have to say, in all fairness, to wear Paisley pyjamas is completely unusual.
How did the Mirror justify the publication of this story?
They said it was really funny.
Sorry, go on.
No, in fact, they said Brooks Newmark was a legitimate target as he was the Minister for Civil Society and the founder of Women to Win, a campaign to get more females into politics.
It would only be hypocrisy if he was the Minister for Genital Concealment. Then there is I think there is a public interest.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The Sunday Mirror's editor vigorously defended the paper's actions, saying subterfuge was used in this investigation and we have been very clear about that from the start. So presumably the correspondence began, hello, I'm a male tabloid journalist, posing as a 21-year-old blonde woman. Would you mind sending me a photo of your penis, please?
Ritual is so... I mean, what are the benefits of joining this club? What do you get? 10% off sports equipment? I mean, what's the great club that you have to stick your cock in a dead pig's mouth to become a member?
Ian, you used to be a member, didn't you?
There's a hesitation.
No, I wasn't a member. It says I was a member on Wikipedia.
Yeah,
which
that's
is,
what they all say.
Yeah, which is quite embarrassing, given I spent half the week with tabloid journalists ringing me up saying, have you...
Placed your chap?
Clarkson in a receptacle. Anyway, no, I was not a member of the Piers Gaveston Society. I was a member of the Piers Morgans.
I won't ask what the ritual was to get into that club.
Did you know people who were, though? Is that the sort of thing they did?
No. I mean,
Yes, yes, no, no. Final 2 words on the subject.
No, he asked me 2 questions. He said, did you know people who were there?
Yes.
And then he asked another question. So I said, yes, I did know people.
Yes.
No, I didn't, which is sort of my answer.
Yes.
I thought I was the one that was going to get a hard time tonight, and it turns out Ian is. Right, yes. This is...
Is that it? We're going to just leave it alone? Lord Ashcroft getting this amazing story into the public domain via the Daily Mail.
I don't think it's even a story. It's a
It's an
fantasy.
It's an act of amazing revenge by the Mail in cohorts with Lord Ashcroft, which the whole country has decided to believe. Usually a story in the Daily Mail, peddled by a non-dom Tory peer who gave £8 million to the Tory party and is in a strop because he wasn't made Defence Secretary, would be laughed out of court. Well, it's not in court yet, but I was hoping it might get in. But no, we've all taken this seriously, and there's the grinning Lord Ashcroft, who, I mean, you know, if you want to talk about members inserted into, you know, the House of Lords, there he is. I mean, it's a disgraceful story. This man, Lord Ashcroft, who gave the Tories all this money, thought he could get himself into the cabinet, thought he could buy himself a cabinet post. And everybody's gone along with this, saying, oh, great, Lord Ashcroft. I mean, he's a non-dom. If we're doing prick jokes, let's have a condom joke. And if you want something disgusting the Prime Minister's done, I mean, you know, there's loads of it. Bedroom tax would be a good start. There's plenty of these things, and everyone goes around saying, oh, it's about a pig when he was 20. Well, how about being really appalling when he was 50?
Right. Ryan Giggs has spent an awful lot of money to ensure that he's become world famous for stuff other than football.
Yeah.
But people still might be sued for telling people that it was him, so...
Yeah, well, that's right. The MP, John Hemming,
yeah.
He said that apparently 75,000 people named Ryan Giggs on Twitter. It's not possible to arrest them all. Well, I mean, it's worth a go, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, the injunction is still in place.
That's right.
That's the thing.
Absolutely.
Despite the people keep going blabbing it out, there's a legal expert, Joshua Rosenberg.
Yeah.
This is what he had to say about it, right?
Well, the law is clear. There is still a court order in force which says that we can't name Ryan Giggs as the person who brought these proceedings.
I'm pleased we can say his name, though, because I was getting so fed up. Every newspaper, every day, it was like, Imogen Thomas has been having sexual liaisons with a man who cannot be named. It's like, what, Voldemort?
Yeah.
I sort of see why he did it as well, Ryan Giggs, because you get the super injunction. He knows that if his identity was known, then people would know not only who he was, but also that his marriage was on the rocks. And at that point, John Terry would be round his house like a sex-crazed wicked.
Yes, the worst-kept secret in Britain is finally out. Lawyers are a complete waste of money. As the row unfolded, thousands of Twitter users named Ryan Giggs in what the Daily Mail called one of the biggest acts of civil disobedience in modern times. Stop that, Syria, lightweights.
Who cooperated with the FIFA inquiry?
The English.
Yes,
Great
no
point.
one except the English and the Australians, and definitely not the Russians or the Qataris.
We never get it, do we? We're conducting... Oh, yes, we'll help. You're guilty.
But why... I mean, why would anyone believe the Russians could be corrupt? But why didn't they cooperate with the FIFA inquiry?
Because they destroyed all their records by accident. Yes. As you do when someone says, I'm conducting an investigation.
It was simply that the Russians were unable to provide more than a few documents from the bidding process because the computers they used during their bid had been leased, they were returned and subsequently destroyed by their original owners.
We must bid for the World Cup. First, we must rent some computers.
Qatari Mohammed bin Hammam undoubtedly paid money to a delegate from Tahiti specifically to vote for the Qatari bid, but why have FIFA dismissed this as irrelevant?
But they said he wasn't acting on behalf of the Qataris. Despite being Qatari and described by the Qataris as their greatest asset in our bid for the World Cup, he was not acting waiting for them. Thank goodness FIFA sorted that one out.
But in this instance, they know he paid money to a delegate to vote for the Qatari bid, so that it's definitely to do with the Qatari bid, but they dismissed it as irrelevant because they said this was only one vote out of the 13 required and therefore could not have been significant. If the ballot papers of 1/13 of the British electorate were forged, that wouldn't be relevant because it couldn't affect the result.
No.
I mean, it's not funny, but these people are arseholes. What, according to the FIFA report, did the English bidding team do that was so worthy of condemnation?
They organised a gala dinner for Warner and generally sucked up to him.
It's almost sweet, our pathetic attempts to bribe them. We sponsored a dinner for Caribbean football to the tune of £30,000 and found a part-time job for a friend of Jack Warner. That's the Jack Warner that the Qataris paid over $1 million to. I think they got a signed copy of your book as well. Did you see the exchange of emails between some of bin Hammam's staff as the allegations of corruption first surfaced?
No.
Well, they appeared in the Sunday Times. It starts, I need you to start shredding his correspondence. So soon? Yes, start from now. There are 3 years of filing to be shredded. Just do it discreetly, OK? What about the request from the Russians to shred?
And this was only 19...